Hi, here are the tips that I had for you previously, just so that you remember. So we talked about your machine eating your fabric as you start to sew your pieces through. So a way to prevent that, or help to prevent that, is to use a leader, and you can also use a footer. All right, so what that is it's just a scrap piece of fabric that is maybe too small to use for anything. You just take your scrap piece of fabric. You don't have to start with the needle up. You can start with the needle down. You take your scrap piece of fabric and put it under your machine and just sew a line. And the more you use this, you can use this over and over and over again. The more you use it, the more it's going to start looking hairy and like a bear. And whenever it just gets too much for you to handle, to look at, then you just throw it away and you get you a new leader. So you sew your leader, you sew off of it a few stitches, and then you put your project under your sewing machine, and it should sew straight onto it without eating your fabric down the needle hole. What a footer is when you get finished sewing your pieces together. I wasn't even looking when I was sewing. And see, your leader and your footer don't have to even be straight pieces of fabric. This is just a scrap piece of fabric that I had laying over to the side. I'm going to sew off of my project a couple of stitches so that I have enough stitches or enough length of the thread on the end to cut it off. And then I'm going to put another piece of fabric under here. And while I'm doing this, I can show you the next tip. So your next tip on how to not have your machine eat your fabric, even if you are using the leader, is when you're putting your fabric underneath here, have your needle down, butt your fabric up against the needle. Don't squinch it to where you're squishing you're rumpling your fabric that you're trying to sew. Just butt the fabric edge against the needle, foot down, begin sewing. That should also help. And the other thing that you can do if it's still trying to eat your fabric is your leader down here. Whenever you start to sew on the leader, when you start to sew on your pieces that you're putting together, if you take your finger back here and put it on the leader, you can kind of pull a little bit to straighten these threads out, and it helps just straighten them out and pull the fabric that's coming next through. Now see, I can use this as my leader or footer. Another tip is on all of my sewing machines, I have a command hook for my snips. They don't have to be these kind. You can have any kind of snips or scissors, whatever, small scissors, as long as they have something to hook onto the command hook. And I have them right here at my side all the time. When I'm finished using them, I put them right back. Use them, put them right back. Use them, put them right back, or else it's useless. So they're right there for me all the time for whenever I need to cut my fabric part. So your footer, your leader helps you get started on your fabric. Your footer helps end the sewing and begin as the footer for the next one. So if you have two, you can do the leader, and then you can do the footer, and then this becomes the leader, this becomes the footer, and you just keep reusing them over and over and over again until they get too furry for you. And sometimes I'll even cut the, if they have long threads off, I'll cut the long threads off just so that it's a little cleaner, so you don't have threads all laying all over your sewing machine. And just keep using them, using them, and using them. I've got one that I could sew into a project for a little bear skin or something. All right, have fun sewing.